I gripped the sponge like a lifeline, my hands shaking with rage. "You're so slow," Joy's mocking voice cut through me like a knife. "A baby could do better." I bit back the words that threatened to spill out, but the hurt still seeped in, like blood from a wound that wouldn't.
Felix lived in a huge house in Lagos, bigger than any castle in fairy tales. His family was the richest around, with cars that sparkled and rooms full of toys and gold. Felix's dad owned a big company that made lots of money. Everyone loved Felix because he was smart and funny, and his dad said, "One day, son, all this will be yours." But Felix wasn't just happy, he felt special. His mom cooked his favorite jollof rice, and his little sister, Ada, always followed him around. At school, kids wanted to be his friend because he had the best lunches and coolest shoes. Felix dreamed of being a hero, someone big and strong like his dad. But deep inside, he felt a little scared. What if he couldn't be as great as everyone thought? Felix's dad sat him down one day. "Felix," he said, "our family has a treasure, money that keeps us safe and happy. You're old enough to help me take care of it." Felix's eyes got big. He felt like a prince being given a magic key. His dad trusted him. That night, Felix couldn't sleep. He imagined all the amazing things he could do with the treasure, buy a rocket ship or build a candy factory. His dad's words echoed in his head, "Be careful, Felix. This treasure is for our family." Felix nodded, but a tiny voice inside whispered, "What if I could make it even bigger?" That whisper felt exciting, like a secret adventure waiting to happen. One day, Felix heard about something called a cryptocurrency. It was like magic coins on the computer that could grow into mountains of gold. His friend Toby said, "Felix, put money in this coin, it'll make you richer than your dad." Felix's heart raced. He wanted to surprise his family and show them he was a big boy. He stayed up late, staring at his laptop. The coin's name glowed on the screen, Supercoin. It sounded powerful, like something a superhero would own. Felix thought, "If I use some of Dad's treasure, I can double it. He'll be so proud." But a tiny shiver ran down his back. What if it didn't work? He pushed the fear away and clicked buy. Felix didn't tell his dad about the supercoin. He wanted it to be a surprise, like when you hide a gift for someone you love. Every day, he checked his computer, watching the numbers go up a little. "I'm a genius," he whispered, smiling wide. He felt tall and strong, like a king. But at dinner, his dad asked, "Felix, how's the treasure doing?" Felix's tummy twisted. He lied, "It's fine, Dad." His sister Eddie giggled and said, "Felix is sneaky." She didn't know the truth, but her words stung. Felix's secret felt heavy, like a rock in his pocket. He wondered if he should tell someone, but he didn't. Not yet. For a while, everything was perfect. The supercoin grew, and Felix felt like he'd won a prize. He bought Ada a doll and his mom a pretty scarf with his own little money. "You're so sweet, Felix," his mom said, hugging him. His dad smiled, proud of his son. Felix's heart was full. He started dreaming bigger. Maybe he'd buy a boat or take his family on a trip around the world, Felix thought. "I'm going to be the best son ever." He didn't know that far away, the supercoin was starting to shake, like a tower about to fall. Trouble was coming, but Felix was too happy to see it. Felix walked around Lagos like a king. People waved at him, saying, "That's Felix, the rich boy." He wore shiny shoes and a big smile. At home, his dad gave him more jobs, saying, "You're growing up, Felix." Felix loved hearing that. It made him feel like a giant. But inside, Felix kept checking the supercoin. It was still growing, but slower now. He told himself, "It's fine. It'll go up again." He didn't want to think about losing. Losing wasn't for kings, it was for scared little kids. Felix wasn't scared, or so he told himself. Deep down, a tiny worry started to grow. One sunny day, Felix met Mary at a party. She had bright eyes and a big laugh, and she wasn't like the other girls who just liked his money. Mary owned a little company that made toys. Felix liked her right away. "You're cool, Mary," he said, and she smiled back. They started talking every day. Mary told him about her dreams to make toys for every kid in Lagos. Felix told her about his family, but not the supercoin. He didn't want her to think he was silly. Soon, Felix asked, "Will you be my fiancé?" Mary said yes, and Felix felt like he'd won the world. But his secret was still hiding, waiting to jump out. Felix gave Mary a shiny ring. "I'll take care of you forever," he promised. Mary hugged him tight, saying, "I believe in you, Felix." Her mom and sister were there too, but they didn't look happy. "He's just a fancy boy," her sister whispered. Mary didn't care, she loved Felix. Felix felt warm and safe with Mary. She didn't know about his family's treasure or the supercoin. He wanted to tell her, but every time he tried, his mouth stayed shut. "She'll love me more when I'm even richer," he thought. Outside, the sky was getting cloudy, and Felix didn't know a storm was coming his way. Felix's dad called him to the big office. "Felix," he said, "I'm giving you all the treasure to watch. I trust you." Felix's chest puffed up. He felt like a superhero getting a cape. "I won't let you down, Dad," he said, shaking his dad's hand. That night, Felix looked at the supercoin numbers. They weren't moving much. He frowned. "Come on, grow," he whispered to the screen. His dad's trust was heavy on his shoulders, but Felix still believed he could fix everything. He didn't know that trusting himself too much was about to break his world apart. Felix was so close to being a hero. The supercoin was his ticket to making his family proud. He imagined his dad saying, "Felix, you're amazing," and Mary cheering for him. He spent hours planning new cars, a bigger house, everything. His dreams were so big, they filled the sky. But something felt wrong. The supercoin stopped growing. Felix's heart beat fast. "It's just a little dip," he told himself, but his hands were sweaty. He didn't tell anyone, not his dad, not Mary. He stood on the edge of glory, but the ground was starting to crack. Felix didn't know he was about to fall. Felix stared at his laptop, his tummy flipping like a fish. The supercoin numbers were dropping fast. "No, no, no," he whispered, clicking the screen. Yesterday, it was high, but now it was sinking like a stone in water. He used his dad's treasure to buy it, and now it was disappearing. He didn't tell anyone. Not his dad, not Mary. He shut his laptop and ran to his room, hiding under his blanket. "It'll go back up," he said, squeezing his eyes shut. But his heart was loud, thumping with worry. Felix wanted to be a hero, but now he felt like a scared little mouse. What if his dad found out? The next day, Felix's dad asked, "How's the treasure, son?" Felix's mouth went dry. He forced a big smile and said, "It's great, Dad. Growing every day." His dad patted his head, proud. Felix's tummy hurt from lying, but he couldn't stop now. He had to fix it. At night, he checked the supercoin again. It was worse, half the money was gone. Felix's hands shook. "I can fix this," he thought, buying more coins with the little treasure left. He was sure it would work. But the numbers kept falling, and Felix's lie grew bigger, like a balloon about to pop. Felix stopped sleeping. He stayed up, watching the supercoin crash. His eyes were red, and his head hurt. Why won't it stop? He cried softly. He wanted to tell Mary, but she'd be mad. He wanted to tell his dad, but he'd lose everything. Felix was stuck. His sister Ada noticed. "Felix, you look tired," she said, hugging her door. Felix smiled weakly. "I'm fine," he lied again. Ada didn't believe him, but she didn't ask more. Felix felt alone, like he was in a dark cave with no way out. The fear whispered louder, "You're in big trouble." Felix had an idea, a wild, crazy idea. "I'll use all the treasure to buy more supercoin," he thought. "When it goes up, I get everything back." He didn't ask his dad. He didn't wait. He clicked buy with shaky fingers, sending every last penny into the coin. For a moment, he felt strong again. "I'm a genius," he said, laughing. He imagined his dad's proud face and Mary's happy hug. But then the screen blinked, the supercoin dropped even more. 90% of the treasure was gone. Felix's laugh turned into a sob. What had he done? Felix's dad called him to the office. "Felix, show me the treasure," he said, his voice serious. Felix's legs wobbled. He opened his laptop, hands sweaty, and showed the screen. The numbers were tiny, almost nothing left. His dad's face turned red, then white. "Felix, what happened?" I thought I could make it bigger," Felix stammered. His dad stood up, yelling, "You lost everything." Felix's mom ran in, and Ada peeked through the door, scared. The room felt like a thunderstorm. Felix wanted to run, but his feet were stuck. His big mistake was out. Felix's dad didn't stop shouting. "You lied to me. You broke our family." Each word hit Felix like a rock. His mom cried, "How could you, Felix?" Ada hid behind her door, tears in her eyes. Felix tried to say, "I'm sorry," but his voice was too small. "I trusted you," his dad said, pointing at the door. "You're not my son anymore." Felix's heart cracked in two. He looked at his family, begging with his eyes, but they turned away. The lie had grown too big, and now it was swallowing him whole. Felix packed a bag with shaky hands. His fancy clothes didn't fit his life anymore. He looked at his room, the toys, the bed, the pictures, and cried. "I messed up," he whispered. His dad's words echoed, "Get out." There was no going back. He walked outside, the Lego sun burning his face. People stared, whispering, "That's Felix, he's poor now." His shiny shoes felt heavy. He had no money, no family, nothing. Felix fell from king to nobody in one day, and the world laughed at him. Felix thought of Mary. "She'll help me," he said, wiping his tears. He walked to her house, his bag dragging behind. Mary opened the door, surprised. "Felix. What's wrong?" she asked. He couldn't lie anymore. "My family kicked me out," he said, his voice breaking. Mary hugged him. "Stay with me," she said softly. Felix felt a tiny spark of hope. But Mary's mom and sister glared from the kitchen. "His trouble," her mom whispered. Felix's big mistake followed him like a shadow, and he wondered if Mary could really save him. That night, Felix checked the supercoin one more time. It was worthless now, just a joke. He threw his phone down, angry tears falling. "I was so stupid," he yelled. All his dreams, gone because of one dumb choice. He punched his pillow, feeling lost. Mary knocked on the door. "Felix, are you okay?" she asked. He didn't answer. He didn't want her to see him like this, weak and broken. The supercoin had tricked him, and now his whole life was a mess. Could he ever fix it? Felix sat alone, thinking about his dad's angry face. "I'm not your son," kept playing in his head. He missed Ada's giggles and his mom's hugs. He'd lost more than money, he'd lost love. His chest felt tight, like he couldn't breathe. Mary tried to cheer him up with tea, but Felix barely smiled. You don't know how bad I am, he thought. His big mistake wasn't just coins, it was breaking trust. Felix wanted to hide forever, but Mary's kind eyes made him wonder, maybe he could start over. Felix walked through Lagos with no home to go to. The streets felt cold, even with the sun shining. People who used to wave now turned away. That's Felix, the boy who lost it all, they whispered. His bag was light, but his heart was heavy. He sat on a bench, watching kids play. He used to be one of them, happy and safe. Now, he had nothing but Mary's promise to help. Felix hugged his knees, tears dripping. I'm nobody now, he thought. The consequences of his big mistake were chasing him like a hungry dog. Felix moved into Mary's little house. It wasn't big or fancy like his old home, just a tiny room with a creaky bed. Mary smiled and said, It's okay, Felix. We'll figure it out. Her kindness made him feel warm, but also ashamed. Mary's mom and sister weren't happy. He's a beggar now, her sister, Joy, snapped. Her mom nodded, frowning. Why bring him here, Mary? Felix heard every word and hid his face. He wanted to scream, I used to be rich, but he stayed quiet. The consequences hurt more than he expected. Mary's family didn't like Felix one bit. At dinner, Joy pushed a tiny plate his way. Eat fast and leave, she said, glaring. Her mom added, We don't need extra mouths. Felix's cheeks burned. He wasn't a guest, he was a problem. Mary held his hand under the table. Ignore them, she whispered. But Felix couldn't. Every mean word felt like a slap. He thought about his dad's big table, full of food and laughter. Now, he was a stranger in a house that hated him. The consequences were loud and mean. That night, Felix cried in his tiny room. He missed his family so much it hurt. Dad, Mom, Ada, I'm sorry, he whispered into his pillow. The supercoin mistake took everything, his home, his love, his name. He felt small, like a lost toy. Mary knocked softly. Felix, don't cry, she said, sitting beside him. You're still you. Felix shook his head. I'm nothing now, he sobbed. Mary hugged him tight, but the tears kept coming. The consequences weren't just outside, they were inside him, breaking his heart. Felix decided to find a job. I'll show them I'm not useless, he told Mary. He walked all day, asking shops, can I work here? Most said no. You're that rich boy who failed, one man laughed. Felix's shoulders slumped. By night, his feet hurt, and he had no job. Mary waited with a sandwich. You tried, Felix, she said. But trying wasn't enough. Joy smirked, he'll never fix this. Felix stared at the floor. The consequences made him feel like he'd never climb back up. Felix's shiny shoes broke. The soles flapped as he walked, and kids laughed. Look at the poor prince, they shouted. Felix tried to laugh too, but it hurt. He used to have 10 pairs of shoes, now he had none. Mary gave him her old sandals. They're not fancy, but they work, she said. Felix wore them, but Joy snickered, he looks ridiculous. Felix's face got hot. The consequences stripped him bare, first his money, now his pride. Could he ever feel big again? One day, Joy yelled at Felix. You're lazy. Get out of our house. Felix shouted back, I'm trying. Mary's mom joined in, your bad luck, Felix. The room was loud with anger, and Felix's chest pounded. He wanted to run away. Mary stepped in. Stop it. "He's my fiancé," she cried. Joy rolled her eyes. "He's nothing, Mary." Felix grabbed his bag, ready to leave, but Mary stopped him. "Stay," she begged. The consequences made everyone mad, and Felix felt like the storm center. Felix sat outside that night, staring at the stars. He felt so alone even with Mary near. "I ruined everything," he thought. His family was gone, and Mary's family hated him. The supercoin mistake was a monster eating his life. A stray dog curled up beside him. Felix petted it, whispering, "You're lost too, huh?" The dog wagged its tail, and Felix smiled a tiny bit. The consequences took his happiness, but maybe little things, like a dog, could bring it back. Felix hoped his dad would write. Maybe he'll say, "Come home," he dreamed. Every day, he checked Mary's mailbox, but it was empty. His family didn't want him back. His heart sank lower each time. Mary saw him waiting. "Felix, you can't keep hoping," she said gently. Felix nodded, but he didn't stop looking. The consequences cut deep. His family's silence was louder than any yell. Felix wondered if they'd ever forgive him, or if he was gone forever. Felix sat by the window, feeling empty. No money, no home, no love from anyone but Mary. "I'm a ghost," he thought. Joy walked by, muttering, "Useless." Felix didn't argue. Maybe she was right. Mary sat with him. "You're enough for me," she said, smiling. Felix wanted to believe her, but the consequences were heavy. They pushed him down, making him feel like he'd never stand tall again. Could Mary's love lift him, or was he too broken? Felix woke up in Mary's house, ready to try again. "I'll make a new life," he told himself. Mary helped him find a small job sweeping floors at a shop. It wasn't fancy, but Felix liked earning money, his own money, not his dad's. At home, Mary cheered, "You did great today." But her mom snorted, "Sweeping? That's all he's good for." Joy laughed meanly. Felix's smile faded. His new life felt tiny next to his old one, and Mary's family made sure he knew it. Could he really start over here? Joy never stopped picking on Felix. "You're so slow," she said when he cleaned the dishes. "A baby could do better." Her mom nodded, "He's a burden, Mary." Felix's hands shook as he scrubbed. He wanted to yell, but he bit his lip instead. Mary hugged him later. "Don't listen to them," she whispered. Felix tried to smile, but the mean words stuck like glue. His new life was supposed to be happy, but Mary's family turned it sour. Felix wondered if he'd ever feel good enough again. One day, Felix dropped a plate while helping in the kitchen. It smashed into pieces, loud and sharp. Joy screamed, "You idiot! That was mine." Her mom ran in, yelling, "He ruins everything." Felix's face burned with shame. "I'm sorry," he mumbled, picking up the bits. Mary helped, but Joy pushed her away. "He should leave," she shouted. Felix felt tiny, like a bug they wanted to squash. His new life was breaking, just like the plate, and he didn't know how to fix it. Mary's mom stopped talking to Felix. She'd walk past him like he was invisible. If he said, "Good morning," she'd huff and turn away. Joy copied her, sticking out her tongue. Felix felt like a ghost in their house. Mary tried to make it better. "They'll warm up," she promised. But Felix saw the ice in their eyes. His new life was lonely, even with Mary by his side. The suffering from her family grew bigger every day, pushing him into a dark corner. Felix started hiding when he cried. He didn't want Mary to worry. In the bathroom, he'd let the tears fall, whispering, "I'm so stupid." Joy's mean words and her mom's cold stares hurt more than he could say. One night, Mary caught him. "Felix, why are you sad?" she asked, her voice soft. He wiped his face fast. "I'm fine," he lied. But Mary hugged him tight, and the tears came anyway. His new life was hard, and the suffering was heavy on his chest. Joy went too far one day. "Felix, you're a loser," she yelled in front of Mary. Felix snapped, "Stop it. I'm trying." Mary's mom joined in, "Don't shout at my daughter." The room exploded with angry voices, everyone pointing at Felix. Mary grabbed Felix's arm. "Enough," she cried. "He's my fiancé." Joy laughed, "He's trash now." Felix's heart raced. He wanted to run, but Mary held him. The suffering from her family was a storm, and Felix was stuck in the middle, soaking wet. Felix started leaving the house early. He'd sweep floors, then sit by a tree, away from Joy and her mom. The quiet felt safe, no yelling, no mean looks. He talked to the birds, pretending they were his friends. Mary found him one day. "Why do you hide?" she asked. Felix shrugged. "It's easier," he said. She sat with him, holding his hand. His new life was better outside, but inside her house, the suffering waited like a monster. Could he keep running? Felix made a sandwich for lunch, but Joy took it. "You don't deserve this," she smirked, eating it in front of him. Felix's tummy growled, but he didn't fight. Her mom watched, saying, "He can starve." Felix's eyes stung. Mary was mad. "That's not fair," she yelled, making him another one. Felix ate quietly, but the hurt stayed. The suffering from Mary's family wasn't just words, it was mean tricks too. Felix felt like he was shrinking every day. One night, Joy locked Felix out. "Sleep outside," she laughed through the window. It was cold, and Felix shivered on the steps. He knocked, but her mom said, "Let him learn." Felix hugged himself, feeling lost. Mary woke up and found him. "Felix," she cried, pulling him inside. She yelled at Joy, but Felix just sat there, numb. His new life was a battle, and the suffering from her family was winning. How long could he take it? Felix couldn't sleep. Joy's laughs and her mom's glares filled his head. "I can't do this," he thought. He packed his bag, ready to leave Mary's house forever. His new life was too hard, and the suffering was breaking him apart. Mary stopped him at the door. "Don't go," she begged, tears in her eyes. Felix looked at her, torn. He loved her, but her family hated him. The consequences of his past and the pain of now crashed together. Would he stay or run? Felix didn't leave Mary's house that night. Instead, he stayed quiet, thinking hard. "I'll show them," he whispered. He'd been sneaking money from his sweeping job into a little box. One day, he saw a new coin on his phone, lucky coin. It felt like a chance to win big again. He didn't tell Mary. This time, I'll be smart, he thought, buying a tiny bit of lucky coin. Every night, he checked it, hiding his phone. The numbers went up, slowly, then fast. Felix's heart jumped. Was this his surprise comeback? He pretended everything was normal, but inside, he was buzzing. One morning, Felix wore a suit he'd secretly bought. It was shiny and new, like his old rich days. Mary stared. "Felix, where'd you get that?" she asked. He grinned, "Just felt like looking nice." Joy smirked, "He's pretending to be someone." Felix walked out, head high. He didn't tell them the lucky coin was growing. He went to his sweeping job, but people noticed. "Felix looks different," they whispered. He pretended he was still poor, but the suit was his first step. A big surprise was coming, and he couldn't wait. Felix's phone rang one day, a number he didn't know. Hello, he said, nervous. A deep voice answered, Felix, we've been watching your lucky coin. Meet us tomorrow. Felix's mouth dropped. Who was this? He pretended it was nothing, telling Mary, just a friend. That night, he couldn't sleep. The voice sounded important, maybe rich. Was Lucky Coin his ticket back? He tossed and turned, dreaming of big offices and shiny cars. Felix kept pretending he was the same old Felix, but something huge was hiding, ready to pop out. Felix went to a tall building the next day. He wore his suit, pretending to be brave. A man in a tie met him. I'm Mr. Obi, he said. Your Lucky Coin gamble paid off. We want you to lead our company. Felix's eyes got wide. Me? A leader, he asked. Mr. Obi nodded. You're smart, Felix. Felix pretended to stay calm, but inside, he was screaming with joy. He signed papers, shaking. The surprise was real, he wasn't poor anymore. But he kept it secret, planning something big for Mary. Felix started working in a huge office. He sat behind a giant desk, feeling like a king again. People called him Sir, and he smiled. Lucky Coin made him rich, richer than before. He pretended to Mary he was still sweeping floors, though. Every day, he wore his suit home, saying, it's for fun. Joy laughed, it's so silly. Mary looked worried, but Felix winked at her. The surprise was growing, like a balloon ready to burst. He wanted to tell her, but not yet. The pretending game was too exciting. Mary got a big chance, the meeting with the CEO for her toy company. She wore her best dress, practicing her words. Felix watched her leave, pretending to wish her luck. You do great, he said, hiding a grin. He knew something she didn't. Mary stepped into the elevator, nervous but strong. When the doors opened, she walked to a fancy office. The receptionist smiled, go in. Mary stepped inside and froze. Felix sat there, behind the desk, smiling. Surprise, Mary, he said. Her jaw dropped. Felix. Mary gasped. You're the CEO. Felix laughed, standing up. Yep. I wanted to surprise you. Mary's head spun. How? You were poor. Felix leaned on his desk, pretending it was no big deal. I got lucky again, he said, eyes twinkling. Mary sat down, dizzy. You've been pretending this whole time. Felix nodded. I didn't want anyone to know, not Joy, not your mom. Just you. Mary's face went red. The surprise was huge, and Felix loved it. But would she be mad or happy? He held his breath. Mary pulled out her papers. I came to talk business, she said, trying to sound tough. Felix grinned. Okay, let's talk, but I'm your fiancé too. Mary's cheeks got hot. She didn't know if she should laugh or yell. They talked about her toys. Felix pretended to be a strict boss, saying, I'll think about it. But then he winked, I'll sign it, Mary. She smiled, confused but excited. The surprise changed everything. Felix wasn't just back, he was bigger than ever. Could they work together now? Felix drove Mary home in a shiny car. Where'd you get this? She asked. He shrugged, pretending it was nothing. Part of the job. Mary stared at him, half smiling. You're full of surprises, Felix. He laughed, happy she wasn't mad. At home, Joy saw the car. Whose is that? She snapped. Felix said, a friend's, still pretending. Joy rolled her eyes, but Mary squeezed his hand. The secret was safe for now, but Felix knew the pretending couldn't last. The truth was itching to come out. Felix went to bed smiling. He'd fooled everyone, Joy, her mom, even Mary for a while. Lucky Coin turned him from a nobody to a boss, and the surprise felt like magic. He hugged his pillow, dreaming of more. Mary peeked in. "You're happy," she said. Felix nodded, pretending to yawn. "Just a good day." She didn't push, but her eyes said she knew something was up. The pretending game was fun, but Felix wondered, when should he tell the whole story? Tomorrow, maybe. Felix sat Mary down in his big office. "I need to tell you everything," he said, his voice shaky. Mary nodded, eyes wide. Felix took a deep breath. "I used to be rich, really rich. My dad had a big company, and I was going to take over. Then I messed up," he said, looking down. "I took his money and bought a silly coin on the computer. It crashed, and I lost almost everything. My family got so mad, they kicked me out." Mary's mouth opened. "Felix, why didn't you tell me?" He shrugged. "I was ashamed." Felix kept talking, his hands fidgeting. "When I came to you, I had nothing. But then I found another coin, Lucky Coin. I saved a little money and bought some. This time, it worked. It grew, and I got rich again." Mary blinked fast. "So you're not poor anymore?" Felix smiled. "No. I used the money to become a boss here." He pointed at his desk. "I wanted to surprise you, Mary. I pretended I was still sweeping floors so no one would guess." Her eyes got teary, but she didn't speak yet. "I'm sorry I lied," Felix said, his voice soft. "I didn't mean to trick you. I just wanted to fix my mistakes and be someone you'd be proud of." He looked at Mary, scared she'd be mad. "I was so sad when my family left me." Mary wiped her eyes. "Felix, I wish you told me sooner. I thought you were just sad, not hiding all this." Felix nodded. "I know. I was scared you'd hate me too." The explanation made his chest feel lighter, but would Mary forgive him? He waited, holding his breath. Mary crossed her arms. "How did you hide it so well?" "The suit, the car, everything." Felix grinned a little. "I'm good at pretending. I saved money secretly and bought things bit by bit. I even told Joy it was all fake." "What about your family?" Mary asked. Felix's smile faded. "They still don't talk to me. I don't know if they ever will." Mary frowned. "That's so sad, Felix." He nodded, his heart heavy again. The explanation was out, but some hurt stayed stuck inside him like glue. Felix took Mary's hand. "I promise, no more secrets," he said. "You're my best friend, Mary. I want us to be happy together, no pretending." Mary smiled, a tiny tear falling. "I believe you, Felix. But you have to trust me too." He hugged her tight. "I do. And I'll make everything right for us, for my family, for everyone." Mary hugged back, and Felix felt warm inside. The explanation cleared the air, but now he had work to do. Could he fix the past? He hoped so, with Mary by his side. Joy stormed into the living room, arms crossed. "Felix, why is everyone talking about you?" she snapped. "Some guy at the market said you own a big company now." "What nonsense is that?" Felix froze. Mary turned to him, eyes wide. "Joy, what are you talking about?" Joy scoffed. "Like you don't know. People are saying Felix is some big boss now, driving fancy cars, making deals. But he still sleeps in this house like a broke man." "Explain that." Before Felix could speak, the front door swung open. Mary's mother marched in, holding a newspaper. She slammed it on the table. "Explain this, Felix." Felix's stomach dropped. Right there, on the front page, was a picture of him in a sleek suit, shaking hands with a powerful businessman. The headline read, "From Nothing to Millions, Felix Mensa, the mystery CEO of Lucky Coin." Joy snatched the paper, reading fast. Her mouth dropped. "What? You're rich? You, Felix?" Mary's mother glared at him. "All this time, you had money. You let us believe you were struggling." Her voice shook with anger. "You let my daughter take care of you when you could have helped us." Felix opened his mouth, but Joy's scream cut him off. "I knew something was off. The suit. The car. You lied." Mary stepped forward. "Stop it." Felix had his reasons. But Joy wasn't listening. "You sat here, eating our food, acting like a nobody. You let me laugh at you. And now you're some secret millionaire." Felix took a deep breath. The pretending was over. "Yes, Joy," he said, standing tall. "I am." The room exploded in shouts. Joy was furious, Mary's mother was shaking, and Mary just watched him, waiting for his next move. Felix raised his hands. "I didn't do this to hurt you," he said firmly. "I was ashamed. I lost everything once, and I didn't want to make the same mistake. I wanted to make sure it was real before telling anyone." Mary's mother shook her head, her voice low but sharp. "You lived in my house, let my daughter feed you, while you sat on a fortune." Felix swallowed hard. "I was trying to fix things first." Joy let out a bitter laugh. "Fix things? You let me mock you every day while you were out there being a big boss. You think that's funny?" Felix met her glare. "No. But I needed to be sure I wasn't just another fool chasing luck again." He turned to Mary. "I wanted to tell you first, in my own way." Mary exhaled, shaking her head. "Felix, I get why you hid it. But this is too much." The room went silent. The weight of his actions settled over everyone. Then Mary's mother picked up the newspaper, staring at Felix's face on the front page. "You've built yourself back up. But now, you have to rebuild the trust you broke." Felix nodded. "I will." His voice was steady. "No more secrets. No more pretending." Joy folded her arms. "Good. Because we are not letting you off easy." Felix let out a small, relieved chuckle. "I wouldn't expect you to." Mary finally smiled, just a little. "Then let's see if you can prove it." Felix looked around the room, at the family who had taken him in, at the woman he loved. This wasn't just about money. It was about making things right. And he was ready. Felix sat at his big desk, holding a pen. "I'll write to Dad," he decided. He wrote, "Dear Dad, I'm sorry I lost your money. I was silly, but I'm better now. I have a job and want to see you. Please forgive me." His hand shook as he signed it. He mailed the letter, heart pounding. "What if he says no?" he asked Mary. She squeezed his hand. "You're brave for trying, Felix." Days passed with no answer, and Felix's hope started to flicker. Reconciliation was hard, but he wouldn't give up, not yet. One day, Felix had a knock at his office. He opened the door, and there was Ada, his little sister. "Felix," she yelled, jumping into his arms. "I missed you." Felix hugged her tight, tears in his eyes. "How'd you find me?" "Mom saw your letter," Ada said. "She told me to come." Dad's still mad, but he read it. Felix's heart jumped. It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was a start. "Tell them I love them," he said. Ada nodded, giggling. Felix felt lighter, maybe his family wasn't gone forever. A week later, Felix's mom called. "Felix, we need to talk," she said, her voice soft but serious. Felix drove to their old house with Mary. His mom hugged him, crying. "We missed you, but you hurt us." Felix nodded. "I know. I'm so sorry." His dad stood by the door, arms crossed. "You're a boss now?" he asked. Felix said, "Yes, sir. I fixed my mistakes." Dad didn't smile, but he didn't yell either. "We'll see," he said. Reconciliation was slow, like a flower growing, but Felix felt hope blooming. Felix invited his family to Mary's house. "Let's eat together," he said. His mom and Ede came, and even Dad showed up, quiet but there. Mary cooked jollof rice, and Felix helped. Joy and her mom stayed away, grumpy, but Felix didn't care. They sat around the table, laughing a little. Ada said, "Felix is cool again." Dad ate silently, then muttered, "Good rice." Felix's heart soared. It was small, but it was something. Reconciliation wasn't perfect, but the family was together, and that was enough for now. Months later, Felix stood with Mary, holding her hand. His dad started talking to him more, and Mom visited often. Ada called him Big Brother again. "We're a family," Felix thought, smiling. He'd lost everything once, but love brought it back. Mary whispered, "I'm proud of you, Felix." He kissed her cheek. "I'm proud of us." Joy and her mom softened too, seeing Felix's new life. The supercoin mistake was far away now, and Lucky Coin gave him a chance to fix it all. Reconciliation won. Felix was home, with a bigger heart than ever. What are your thoughts on Felix's story? Have you ever made a mistake you wish you could undo, or learned something important the hard way? Drop your answer in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Remember, no matter where you are in life, it's never too late to make things right. Stay strong, and we'll see you in the next video.